kinds of ideas in my head that were just kicking around, waiting to come out. From improvising on various modes and scales. I had ideas of how to superimpose different scales on top of one another. I had ideas of tunes that weren't in the first Masada book that I always wished that were there, that so we could blow. I would have to blow on. So I sat down and I said, okay, let's see if I could write 100 tunes in a month. And I wrote 100 tunes in the first month and kept going. And I wrote 100 tunes in the second month, and then 100 more tunes in the third month. And I wrote 316 tunes. The second Masada book is very different than the first. Greg, Dave, and Joey have all commented on it. The process, obviously, was much smoother. The first book, I was really, like with a chisel and a hammer, chipping out a whole new language. And I look at the notes that I did back then, and phrases are written here and there, and there's arrows, and I'm trying to put tunes together and compositions together by taking a little this and a little that, and it's all over the place. It was very difficult and painful to create that music. By 2004, I'd been working with that language for a long time, and the tunes just flowed out one after the other. There were no sketches written at all. There were no little phrases that were erased. I'd sit at the keyboard, I'd play a tune, I'd write it down with no erasures from beginning to end. I'd change key and go to a different tune. I had notes on this early on, trying to figure out exactly what was going on, and slowly things come to me. I don't always understand what I'm doing right at the beginning. Again, it's a matter of perspective. After a number of months or years, I can see the bigger picture and understand. So the first book is kind of the earthly realm, the second is the angelic, and the third is the spiritual one.
is it? Aside from the technical things, I think it's like it's an intention more than all those technical things, and even if none of those technical things like scales and rhythms are present, it can still be very Jewish. It just depends on the intention of the musician, of the artist. You know, there's all kinds of feelings and energy around music besides the obvious things that you kind of hear. The first thing that hits your ear maybe is the sound, is the note, is the rhythm, but there's the soul that's all around all those things, and it can come from a lot of different places. You know, I'll just play for you, and then you can maybe feel something or maybe not. I just think about, like, if, you know, if it wasn't there, if Tzadik wasn't there, if the radical Jew, if this kind of thing wasn't there for me, which I think it's kind of there for me, people worked for the younger generation, it's working for me, and I thank them so much. They make everything, they made everything so much easier. If it wasn't there, then I would have to, it would be much harder for me to find, you know, I haven't found everything about, you know, the true thing about myself, but some of it I did. I think I did find, and it would be so much harder for me to find if it wasn't for them.
The ferment and the foment of the question asking and the kind of collaborations that were being done and the crazy stuff that was happening, and the risk taking was at a particular point when this film was made. And I'm not saying that risk taking is not taking place still. But I'm saying this was a very strong, if you want to say, first generation of this community talking about these things and trying to figure out what their connections were to these things. It captured that in a way that you can't fake.
What's interesting is, here it is 15 years later, and you look back at this one little moment, and it still has an incredible impact. And it's like the first time that we rehearsed Cobra or something. It's like I remember that so well. There's certain musical moments in my life that were real epiphanies in a certain way. The recording of Godard and Spillane, the communities that were created in the studio with those pieces, and the community that was created with the Cobra piece, the community that was created with the Masada music. Ultimately, all of my work revolves around the idea of and exists in community. That's what it's all about. And I think when I came back from Japan, I was very lonely and very hungry and looking for a community, something to belong to. And this kind of happened and felt really good. And then, of course, immediately, people started arguing and fighting, as people do, and it felt like a family because of that. That was more than a community. And it was great. It was really great. And I still feel deep connections with all of these people because of those moments. The same way I feel deep connections with people that were there in the studio when we created Godard and Spillane, or were there at Roulette when we first rehearsed Cobra. Those are very pure and almost holy moments for me. Musical moments where something was discovered, something new, something remarkable. We have the fruits of our labor on record. They're there. In your case, you have it on film. And that's a very remarkable and magical achievement. That moment was captured so early on.